The bank balance on my screen said 0, not low, not almost empty, 0. And the two people who did it were standing right behind me in my own kitchen, watching me find out. I didn't turn around. I just sat there, still, like a statue. My phone in my hand, the screen glowing, that number burning into my eyes. 12 years of military service, 12 years of sand, blood, broken bones, and sleeping in the dirt with one eye open. 12 years of missing birthdays, missing holidays, missing the life that was supposed to be waiting for me. And this is what I came home to, 0. My name is Marcus Cole. I'm 34 years old. 3 months ago I was Sergeant First Class Marcus Cole, serving under General Raymond Holt, one of the most decorated 4-star generals in United States military history. I had 12 years of service. I'm 2 combat tours, a Purple Heart, and a permanent leg injury that ended my career before I was ready to let it go. When the discharge papers came, I wasn't angry, I was just tired. I wanted to come home, I wanted to sleep in a real bed. I wanted to eat a real meal. I wanted to sit in a quiet room and hear nothing. No explosions, no orders, no radio static. Just silence. I wanted my family. I had no idea what my family wanted from me. My brother Derek picked me up from the bus station on a Tuesday afternoon. He drove up in our father's old pickup truck, the same one we used to fight over as teenagers, back when everything between us was still simple. He jumped out and gave me a big hug. He was smiling wide. He said all the right things. "Marcus, man, it's so good to have you back. We missed you, bro." "Yeah," I said. Good to be back." He grabbed my duffel bag without being asked. He talked the whole drive home, about the neighborhood, about some new restaurant downtown, about nothing important. He was loud and easy and familiar, but something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it. It was just this small, cold feeling sitting behind my ribs. Like when you walk into a room and the conversation stops 1 second too late. I noticed Derek never looked at me directly for more than 2 seconds. Every time our eyes met in the rearview mirror, he found something else to look at. I told myself I was being paranoid. After 12 years of reading danger signs in the field, my brain didn't know how to switch off. I wasn't in a war zone anymore. I was home. I kept telling myself that. Elena was waiting at the front door when we pulled up. My wife of 7 years. She looked beautiful. She always did. She wrapped her arms around me and held on for a long time, without saying a word. I held her back. I thought the silence meant she was emotional. I didn't realize she was hiding her face. My mother, Linda, had cooked my favorite meal, baked chicken with rice and her homemade pepper sauce. The whole house smelled like every Sunday from my childhood. We sat around the dinner table like a normal family. Mum kept refilling my plate before I could finish. Derek told bad jokes and laughed at them himself. Elena touched my hand at the right moments. It looked perfect. But it felt like a stage play, like everyone had rehearsed their lines before I walked through the door. I noticed the small things all because that is what soldiers do. When Derek's eyes went to Elena every time I started a new sentence. Elena's hand kept disappearing under the table where her phone was. Mum talked too fast, the way she used to when we were kids, and she was hiding something from our father. I noticed all of it, and I said nothing. Because I was home, I was safe, I was exhausted down to my bones, so I told myself I was overthinking. I ate my mother's cooking, and I smiled at my wife, and I laughed at my brother's jokes. I should have trusted that cold feeling behind my ribs. 4 days later, I tried to pay a hospital bill. $640, a specialist I had seen right after discharge. I opened the pension app on my phone, the same account I had checked from the base before I left. $240,000 in back pay. and 12 years of money I had earned and never touched, saved and waiting for me. I clicked the app. The screen loaded. Account balance, $0. I stared at it. I blinked. I thought my phone was glitching. I closed the app and opened it again. $0. My hands felt cold. I called the bank. It rang twice. A woman answered. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you today?" "I need to check my account," I said. "Something looks wrong." I gave her the account number. I heard her typing. Then she went quiet for just one moment. And that tiny pause told me everything before she even spoke. "Sir, this account was restructured under a power of attorney arrangement. The funds were transferred out in multiple transactions over the last 22 months. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. "I'm sorry," I said slowly. "Did you say power of attorney?" "Yes. Sir, the paperwork was filed approximately 2 years ago. I never signed a power of attorney." A longer pause. "Sir, if you believe there has been an unauthorized arrangement, I would recommend—" I hung up. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. I just held my phone and stared at the wall. 2 years ago, I was on my second deployment, sleeping in a forward operating base, living on field rations, watching the door of my tent every night. 2 years ago, while I was out there, someone was in my bank account, using my name, using a document I never signed, draining everything I had ever earned, one transaction at a time. $240,000 gone. I heard footsteps, slow, careful footsteps, the kind people make when they are trying not to be heard. I didn't turn around right away. I looked at my reflection in the black screen of my phone, and in that dark glass I saw, just over my shoulder, 2 people standing in the doorway behind me, very still, watching me. Eleanor and Derek. They weren't surprised. They weren't confused. They were just waiting, like they had known this moment was coming, like they had been dreading it, but they were ready for it. I set my phone on the table, very carefully, the way you handle something when your hands are shaking and you refuse to let anyone see it. Then I turned around. Nobody spoke. Derek was looking at the floor. Elena was looking at the wall just to the left of my face, close enough to seem like eye contact, far enough to avoid it. In that silence, in those 2 small acts of cowardice, I got my answer. I clear as anything I had ever read on a battlefield report. I had survived 2 wars. I had walked through enemy fire. I had carried injured men on my back when my own legs wanted to quit. I had never, not once, broken down. But standing in that kitchen, looking at my brother, looking at my wife, I felt something crack inside my chest, deep and slow like ice breaking under weight. Something that had survived 12 years of war couldn't survive this room. I took one slow breath. Then I said it. 2 words, quiet as I have ever said anything in my life. "How long?" Derek flinched like I had hit him. Elena closed her eyes. And in that moment I understood something no bank call had made real until right now. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice they made. A choice they made together. And while I was bleeding for this country, they were spending everything I bled for. And they were never going to tell me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my side of the bed, the same bed I had dreamed about coming back to for 2 years, and I stared at the ceiling in the dark. Elena was next to me. I could hear her breathing, slow and steady like she was asleep. She wasn't asleep. I could tell by the way she was holding her body. Too still, too careful. The way you lie when you're pretending. I had learned to read people in the field. You had to. Your life depended on knowing when someone was lying to you, when someone was scared, when someone was about to do something dangerous. I had gotten very good at it. And right now, lying in my own bed in my own home, next to my own wife, every instinct I had was screaming the same thing. She knows exactly what she did. I got up at 4 a.m. I went to the kitchen. I sat down at the same table where I had found out, and I opened my laptop. I had work to do. By the time the sun came up, I had printed 12 months of bank statements from the online portal. I had written down every single transaction I could find, dates, amounts, account numbers the money was moved to. I had filled 3 pages of a legal pad with notes, and my coffee had gone cold twice. I wasn't angry yet. Not the way people expect anger to look, loud and breaking things. I was something quieter than that, something colder. I had been trained to operate under pressure. I had been trained to think clearly when everything around me was falling apart. So that is what I did. I thought clearly. I built my case the same way I would build a mission report. Evidence first, emotion later. At 9 a.m, I heard Derek's truck pull up outside. I hadn't called him. He just showed up, which told me Elena had. He came through the front door like he owned the place, the way he always did. He was wearing a jacket I didn't recognize. New. Expensive. I looked at it for exactly 1 second, and then I looked back at my papers. "Marcus," he said, like a greeting. Like this was a normal visit. "Sit down, Derek." He sat. Elena came in from the hallway and stood near the kitchen counter with her arms crossed. Her eyes were red. She had been crying, or she wanted me to think she had been crying. I didn't say anything to her, not yet. I looked at Derek. Then I slid the first stack of bank statements across the table toward him. Well, he looked at them. He didn't touch them. "I already know what those are," he said. "Good," I said. "Then we can skip the part where you pretend to be surprised." He tried to minimize it first. That was his opening move. I had expected it. "Marcus, listen. It was supposed to be a loan. I was going to pay it back before you got home. Things just got out of hand." 22 months, I said. $240,000 out of hand. "I know how it looks." "Derek," I kept my voice flat. "I talked to the bank. There is a power of attorney document on file. I never signed that document. You want to explain that to me?" He went quiet. Elena shifted against the counter. She still wasn't looking at me directly. "Who signed it?" I asked. Silence. "Who notarized it?" More silence. I leaned forward, just slightly, the way my commanding officer used to lean forward when he wanted you to understand that the conversation had changed. "I have already made copies of everything," I said. "I have already called a lawyer, so before you decide what you want to say next, understand that I am not asking because I don't know. I am asking to see if you will tell me the truth." Derek's jaw tightened. He looked at Eleanor. She looked away. And then something shifted in him. The guilt dropped away. And what came up underneath it was something I hadn't expected. Anger. His anger. Like he had been waiting to say this for years. "You want the truth, Marcus?" He leaned back in his chair. His voice got louder. "Fine. The truth is you were never here. You chose that uniform over everything, over Mom, over Eleanor, over me. So you left and you never looked back and everyone just had to keep going without you." I didn't say a word. "You know what it was like," he said. "Being your brother? My whole life. Marcus the hero. Marcus the soldier. Marcus the good one. You have no idea what it's like to grow up in someone else's shadow. I was invisible, Marcus. My whole life I was invisible." He was breathing hard now. "So yeah, I used the money because I spent 12 years getting nothing while you got everything. The respect, the medals, Mum's pride, all of it. I just took what I was owed. The kitchen was completely silent after he finished. I sat there and I let his words settle. I looked at my brother, this man I had grown up with, fought with, laughed with, and I saw something I had never seen before. Not guilt, not shame, entitlement. He genuinely believed what he was saying. Then the front door opened. My mother walked in. She must have been waiting in Derek's truck the whole time. She came straight to him and put her hand on his shoulder. She looked at me with the saddest eyes I had ever seen on her face. "Marcus, please," she said. "This is your family. Whatever happened, we can fix it privately. You don't need to bring lawyers into this. Don't destroy everything your father built." I looked at her for a long moment. "Mum," I said quietly, "Dad didn't build anything. I did for 12 years, and Derek spent it." She flinched, but she didn't move away from Derek. She just held on to his shoulder tighter. I stood up. I walked to my room. I took my military duffel bag out of the closet, the same one I had carried for 12 years, and I packed what I needed. Our clothes, documents, my laptop, the printed bank statements, the legal pad with my notes. I came back out to the hallway. Derek was still at the kitchen table. Elena was still at the counter. Mum was still standing with her hand on Derek's shoulder, protecting the wrong person, the way she always had. None of them said anything as I walked to the front door. I stopped with my hand on the door handle. I didn't turn around. There was nothing left to turn around for. "I gave 12 years to this country," I said. "I gave everything I had to this family, and you took the one thing I had left." I opened the door. "I'm not going to let that go." I walked out. I had no plan. I had $200 in my wallet, a bad leg, and a duffel bag, but I had something else too, something Derek never had, no matter how much of my money he spent. And I had discipline, I had patience, and I had proof. They just didn't know what I was going to do with it yet. The Sunrise Motel on Route 9 cost $49 a night. The carpet was stained, the heater made a clicking sound every few minutes. The window looked out onto a parking lot and a gas station. The mattress was thin and the pillow was thinner. I had slept in worse places, a lot worse. I paid for 3 nights in cash, and I went to my room, and I sat on the edge of the bed, and I stared at the wall for a long time without moving. This was my homecoming. $200 in my wallet, a bad leg that was already aching from the walk, a duffel bag with 3 days of clothes, and a folder full of bank statements, and a motel room that smelled like someone else's bad decisions. I didn't feel sorry for myself. Oh, I want to be clear about that. Self-pity was a luxury I had never been able to afford, and I wasn't about to start now. But I did feel something. Sitting there in that quiet room, with no mission, no orders, no purpose, I felt the full weight of what had happened land on me all at once. Not the money, not even the betrayal, the loneliness of it. 12 years I had spent believing that home was worth it, that when things got dark out there, when the heat was unbearable and the fear was real and the mission felt impossible, I could close my eyes and think about home, and it would be enough to keep going. Home was the reason. And now I was sitting in a $49 motel room, and home didn't exist anymore. I didn't sleep the first night. I sat in the dark, and I did what soldiers do when they can't sleep. And I ran the mission back in my head, every detail, every moment, looking for the thing I missed, and I found it over and over again, the way Derek never held eye contact, the way Elena hugged me for too long at the door, the way my mother talked too fast over dinner, the way nobody asked me about my injury, Not really. Not the way people ask when they actually want to know. They weren't celebrating my return. They were managing it. They had known I was coming home. They had weeks to prepare, and what they prepared was a performance, a family dinner designed to buy time, to keep me comfortable and distracted long enough to what? What was the plan? Did they think I would never check my account? Did they think I would just accept it? Or did they think that after 12 years away, I was too disconnected from my own life to notice? Well, that thought kept me up until 3 in the morning. My phone buzzed at 7. One text. No greeting, just a name and a question. Victor. You okay? Victor Reyes. My closest friend from 8 years of service together. He had been discharged 14 months before me. A knee injury that wouldn't heal. He lived 3 hours away now, running a small auto repair shop and pretending he didn't miss the army every single day. I stared at his text for a moment. Then I typed back, no, but I will be. 3 minutes later my phone rang. Where are you? He said. No hello, no small talk. That was Victor. Sunrise Motel, Route 9. The one near the gas station. Yeah. A pause. I could hear him moving around on his end, keys jingling. Don't go anywhere, he said. He hung up. Victor showed up 3 hours later, and he knocked twice and I opened the door, and he walked in carrying 2 large coffees and a paper bag from a diner down the road. He looked at the room, the stained carpet, the thin mattress, the folder of bank statements spread out on the small table. And he didn't say anything about any of it. He just set the coffees down and sat in the only chair. I sat on the bed. We didn't speak for almost a full minute. Just drank our coffee. That was something I had always liked about Victor. He never rushed to fill silence. He understood that sometimes you needed a moment before you could find the words. Finally, he said, "Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about the bank account, the power of attorney document, the 22 months of transactions, Derek's speech at the kitchen table, my mother protecting the wrong person, or Elena standing at the counter with her arms crossed and her eyes anywhere but on my face. Victor listened to all of it without interrupting once. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his own phone. He turned the screen toward me. It was a screenshot of a Facebook post. Derek's profile. Posted 2 days ago, the day after our confrontation. The post said, "Praying for my family right now. Sometimes the people you love come back from war different. It's painful to watch. Please keep us in your prayers." I read it twice. He already started, Victor said. I've been seeing people comment on it all morning. People from Greyfield, people who know you. They're feeling sorry for him, Marcus. He's building the story before you can. I set the phone down on the bed. He's telling people I'm unstable, I said. He's telling people you're dangerous, Victor said. There's a difference. Unstable gets you sympathy. Dangerous gets your reputation destroyed. I looked at the folder of bank statements on the table. Elena filed for legal separation this morning, Victor said. My contact at the county clerk's office let me know. I nodded slowly. None of this surprised me. This was the next move. Of course it was. If they could paint me as a threatening, unstable veteran, if they could get ahead of the story, then anything I said about the money would look like the raving of a damaged man. It was smart. I had to give them that. It was actually very smart. So what do you want to do? Victor asked. That question landed differently than I expected. I'm not what are you going to do? As if the answer was already decided. But what do you want to do? As if I still had a choice. As if I was still the one in control of this. I looked at my legal pad, at the notes I had made through the night. I picked up the pen. I want to treat this exactly like a mission, I said. Assess, plan, execute. Victor nodded once, like that was the answer he had been waiting for. Then let's get to work, he said. We spent the rest of that day and all of the next night building the file. Victor had contacts I didn't have anymore. He knew people. He made calls while I organized documents. By midnight, we had a clear picture of what had happened and how. The power of attorney document was forged. Derek's signature was on it, not mine. A local notary named Garfield, working out of a strip mall office near the county line, had authenticated it. That notary was the weak point. That was where the whole thing would unravel if someone pulled the right thread. I wrote his name down. I circled it twice. Then Victor's phone rang. He looked at the screen and his eyebrows went up slightly. He answered it, listened for about 30 seconds, and then held the phone out toward me. "It's Dana Park," he said. "Captain Dana Park, JAG officer. She's a friend of mine from my last base. I called her 2 hours ago and sent her everything." I took the phone. "Sergeant Cole," a woman's voice said, calm, professional, precise. "I've reviewed what Victor sent me. I need you to understand something clearly." "Go ahead," I said. "This isn't a civil matter," she said. What was done to your pension account, the forged power of attorney, the unauthorized transfers? This is federal fraud against a military pension. That puts it in a completely different category." I didn't say anything, I just listened. "Whoever did this didn't just steal from you," she said. "They committed a federal crime, and I think you should let me help you make sure they answer for it." The motel room was completely quiet. Outside, a truck pulled into the gas station. The heater clicked once. I looked at Victor. He was watching me with that steady look he always had, the one that meant, this is real, and it is happening, and you need to decide. I looked back at the folder, at 12 months of evidence, at Derek's name, at the notary's name, at 240,000 reasons to fight. "Captain Park," I said. Yes? Tell me what we need to do next." Captain Dana Park worked fast. Within 24 hours of our phone call, she had reviewed every document Victor sent her, every bank statement, every transaction record, the forged power of attorney letter, the notary's registration number I had pulled from public records online. She called me back the next morning at exactly 8 o'clock. "Sergeant Cole," she said, "I've seen a lot of military pension cases. This one is clean. By that I mean the evidence is clear, the paper trail is solid, and the people who did this were not careful enough." "How bad is it for them?" I asked. "Federally bad," she said. "The forged power of attorney on a military pension account triggers statutes that go above state law. We're talking potential prison time, not a fine, not probation." Prison. I sat with that for a moment. I had told myself I wanted justice. I had told myself I was calm. But hearing those two words, prison time, something moved inside my chest. Not satisfaction, not yet. Something more complicated than that. These were people I had loved. "What do we do first?" I said. "First," she said, "we find the notary." His name was Gerald Garfield. He operated out of a one-room office in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a cell phone repair shop on the county line. His name was on a small plastic sign next to the door. His notary registration was public record. I had already pulled it the night before and sent it to Captain Park. Victor and I didn't go inside. We didn't need to confront him. That wasn't the move. Instead, I sat in Victor's car across the parking lot with a coffee and my phone, and I watched the office for 2 hours while Victor researched Garfield's background on his laptop. What Victor found was interesting. Gerald Garfield had 3 complaints filed against him with the state notary board in the last 4 years. 2 had been dismissed. 1 was still open. He had also received 2 payments, cash deposits into a personal account, that didn't match any of his registered business income. Victor found this through a contact he had at a local title company who had dealt with Garfield before. The deposits were made 23 months ago, 1 month before the forged power of attorney document was filed. I wrote that down. I underlined it twice. "He was paid," I said. "He was paid," Victor confirmed. I took a photo of his office. I wrote down the license plates of the 2 cars in the parking lot. I noted the time. I sent everything to Captain Park. She responded in 11 minutes. "This is exactly what we needed. Don't approach him. Let me handle the next step." That afternoon, Derek called me. I almost didn't answer. But then I thought about what Captain Park had said. The people who did this were not careful enough. And I decided that Derek calling me was actually an opportunity. I answered. "Marcus." His voice was different from the kitchen confrontation. Softer. Almost gentle, like he had rehearsed this version too. "Derek." "Look, I've been thinking," he said. "I don't want this to go where it's going. I don't want lawyers and courts and all of that. This is family, Marcus. We can handle this between us." "I'm listening," I said. I put the phone on speaker. I opened the voice recorder app. I pressed record. "I can get you $50,000, he said. "I'll pay it back over 3 years. You sign a release, just a simple document saying we settled privately, and we move on. Nobody gets hurt. The family stays together." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. "That's your offer," I said. 50,000. "It's a fair start, Marcus. I don't have all of it liquid right now, but you spent $240,000 in 22 months, Derek." "On what?" A pause. "That's not..." "Look, some of it was investments that didn't work out." "What investments?" Another pause. Longer. "The vacation property," he said finally. "And some other things. It doesn't matter now. What matters is we fix this." "The vacation property," I said slowly. "That's in Elena's name." Silence. "Derek, is the vacation property in Elena's name?" "Marcus, answer the question." He didn't. And then, because he was nervous, because he had always talked too much when he was nervous, because some things about a person never change, he said something he hadn't meant to say. "Look, Dad always said Harold would know how to handle this kind of situation. Elena talked to him early on, and he helped make sure the paperwork looked right. But that was just..." He stopped himself. Too late. "Harold," I said. "Harold Webb." Silence so thick I could feel it through the phone. Harold Webb, Elena's father, city councilman, a man who had shaken my hand at my wedding and told me I was the son he never had. A man with connections at the county clerk's office. A man who would know exactly which notary to use and how to make paperwork look legitimate. And the circle just got wider. I kept my voice completely calm. "Okay, Derek," I said. "I'll think about your offer." "Yeah?" He sounded relieved. Okay, good. Just think about it and call me back. We can work this out." "Sure," I said. I hung up. I stopped the recording. I sat there for 10 seconds, staring at the motel wall. Then I forwarded the audio file to Captain Park with 1 line of text. He mentioned Harold Webb, Elena's father, councilman, said he helped make the paperwork look right. Her response came in 7 minutes this time. "Call me now," I called her. She picked up before the first ring finished. "Sergeant Cole," she said, "I need you to listen to me very carefully." "I'm listening." "Harold Webb's involvement changes the scale of this significantly. A sitting city councilman with access to county records,
Oh, and who helped facilitate the fraudulent notarization of a forged document. That is not just fraud anymore. That is conspiracy that potentially involves abuse of public office. I was quiet. This goes higher than your brother, she said. This goes higher than your wife. There are people in this who have a lot more to lose than Derek does. What does that mean for the case? I asked. It means the case just became much stronger, she said. And it means the people involved are going to start panicking very soon. I looked at my legal pad, at the names written there: Derek, Eleanor, Garfield, and now Harold Webb. There's something else, Captain Park said. Her voice shifted slightly. Still professional. But something underneath it had changed, like she was choosing her next words carefully.
Oh, while I was reviewing your service record to build the case file, she said, I flagged your name through a standard military database check, and something came back that I wasn't expecting. What came back? I said. Your name is already on a list, she said. It's been there for about 2 months. Someone at a very high level of command has been tracking your discharge status. My hand tightened on the phone. Who? I said. A pause. Sergeant Cole, Captain Park said slowly. Have you had any recent contact with the office of General Raymond Holt? The motel room felt very still suddenly. General Holt, my commanding officer, the man I had served under for the last 4 years of my career, the most decorated 4-star general in active service, a man so respected that junior officers stood straighter just hearing his name. No, I said. Not since discharge. Why? Because, Captain Park said, his office has been flagging your file. She paused again. And this morning, she said, his aide called me directly. The line was quiet for a moment. Outside my motel window, the sun was going down. The gas station across the lot flickered to life, its lights buzzing orange in the early dark. I thought about 12 years of service. I thought about a mission in Kandahar that nobody talked about. I thought about 3 soldiers I had pulled out of a collapsed structure under enemy fire while my own hands were bleeding. I thought about the paperwork I had signed afterward and the classification stamp on top of it. I had never told anyone about that mission. Not Derek, not Elena, not even Victor. But General Holt knew. General Holt had been there. What did his aide say? I asked. Well, Captain Park's voice was steady. But I could hear something underneath it now. Something close to the feeling I had when a mission was about to change direction completely. He said the general is coming to Greyfield, she said. I didn't speak. He's coming in 6 days, she said, and he's bringing his full legal staff. I sat on the edge of that thin motel mattress, in that $49 room, with my bad leg and my $200 and my folder full of evidence. And for the first time since I had come home, for the first time since I had seen that 0 on my screen, I felt something shift. Not hope exactly. Something steadier than hope. Certainty. Whatever Derek had built against me, whatever story he was telling, whatever reputation he was dismantling, whatever protection Harold Webb thought his position gave him, none of it was going to matter in 6 days, because in 6 days a 4-star general was coming to my hometown, and he wasn't coming for them, he was coming for me. The call came at 7 in the morning, not from an aide, not from a secretary, not from some junior officer passing along a message, from the general himself. I was sitting on the edge of my motel bed, coffee in hand, going over the evidence folder for the 4th time that week, when my phone rang. Virginia area code, number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. I answered on the 3rd ring. Sergeant Cole. 1 sentence, 2 words, and I knew. I had heard that voice in the field, and I had heard it over radio static and through sandstorms and across the noise of a forward operating base at 3 in the morning. It was the kind of voice that cut through everything. Not because it was loud, but because it was certain. Every word placed exactly where it needed to be. I stood up, automatically. 12 years of muscle memory. "General Holt," I said. "Sit down, son," he said. "This isn't a formal call." I sat. He didn't waste time. That was one thing I had always respected about him. General Raymond Holt was 61 years old, 4 stars on his shoulder, 38 years of service behind him, and he had never once in my experience used 3 words when 2 would do. "I know what happened to your pension," he said. "I've known for 9 days." "Sir?" "Captain Park is thorough," he said. When she flagged your file through military legal channels, it came across my desk. I read the full report. I didn't say anything. I just listened. "I also know what your brother has been saying around your hometown," he said. "The social media posts, the story he's building, I've seen it." My jaw tightened. "Sir, I want you to know that I haven't—" "I know you haven't," he said. "That's not why I'm calling." A pause. Outside my window, a truck pulled out of the gas station. The morning was grey and quiet. "Do you remember Kandahar?" he said. "November, 4 years ago?" My hand tightened around the phone. "Yes, sir," I said. "I remember." 3 soldiers, he said. "Collapsed structure, 40 minutes under fire." "Yes, sir." "I was the commanding officer on that mission, Sergeant. I wrote the report. I signed the classification order." Another pause. "I also wrote a separate commendation recommendation that same night. Submitted it up the chain. It got buried in bureaucracy the way things do. But I never withdrew it. I was completely still. It was reclassified and approved 8 weeks ago," he said. "Formal commendation, your name, your service number, signed and official." I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. "I had already planned a ceremony," he said. "A veteran recognition initiative. I do them in hometown communities. Bring the commendation directly to the soldier in front of their people, makes it real, makes it mean something." "Sir?" I said slowly. "You were already coming to Greyfield?" "I was already coming to Greyfield," he confirmed. And then Captain Park's report landed on my desk, and I decided that the ceremony would proceed exactly as planned. He let that sit for a moment. "But I will also be bringing my full legal staff," he said, "and a military attorney who specializes in pension fraud cases, and we will be conducting a formal inquiry while we are there." My throat felt tight. Not from sadness, from something I hadn't felt in weeks. "General," I said, "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," he said. "Just be there, 6 days. Community Center on Main Street, 10 o'clock in the morning." "Yes, sir," I said. "And Sergeant Cole?" "Sir?" "Get some rest. You look like you haven't slept." The line went dead. I sat there holding my phone for a long time. Then I laughed, just once, short and quiet. The kind of laugh that comes out when something is so far beyond what you expected that your body doesn't know what else to do. Victor was going to lose his mind when I told him. The next 6 days were the longest of my life. Not because nothing was happening. Everything was happening. Captain Park was filing preliminary paperwork. Victor was coordinating with her on logistics. Garfield the notary had already been contacted by military legal. And according to Captain Park, he had hired a lawyer within 48 hours of that contact, which told us everything we needed to know about his intentions to cooperate. Harold Webb had gone very quiet. No public statements, no appearances at City Hall, but his assistant told the local paper he was dealing with a personal matter. Victor tracked down 3 people who confirmed that Webb had made several calls to a private attorney in the days after Derek's arrest paperwork was being prepared. They were all scared, every single one of them. And they should have been, but those 6 days were long, because I had nothing to do but wait. And waiting has always been the hardest part for me. In the field, there is always something to do. Always a next step, always a task, always a way to stay ahead of your own fear. But in that motel room with the clicking heater and the thin mattress, there was nothing between me and my own thoughts. I thought about Elena a lot during those 6 days. Not with anger, with something sadder than anger. 7 years. I had chosen her. I had trusted her with everything. My name, my future, my money. When I was overseas and the nights were bad and the mission felt like it would never end, she was the face I held on to. She was the reason I kept going, and she had known the whole time. She had kissed me at the door and cooked dinner and smiled at the right moments. And she had known. I couldn't make that make sense, no matter how many times I turned it over. Some things don't make sense. You just have to accept them and keep moving. The morning of the ceremony, I put on my dress uniform. I hadn't worn it since discharge. It still fit. Barely. I had lost some weight in the motel. I stood in front of the small bathroom mirror, and I put on every piece, slowly, the way I had been taught. Every button, every pin, every ribbon in its correct place. On my purple heart on the left side, exactly where it belonged. My leg ached. It always ached in the mornings. I took my cane from the corner and I walked out of the motel room, and Victor was already waiting in the parking lot, engine running. He looked at me in the uniform and he didn't say anything for a moment. Then he said, "You look like a soldier." "I am a soldier," I said. He nodded once. "Let's go." We heard the convoy before we saw it. 2 military vehicles coming down Main Street, moving slow and deliberate, the way military convoys always move, like they own the road because they do. Victor pulled over without being asked. I watched through the windshield as the vehicles passed, dark green, government plates, and behind the tinted glass of the lead vehicle, the faint outline of a man in full dress uniform. 4 stars. So people were already gathering on the sidewalk. Greyfield was a small town, and a military convoy on Main Street was not something that happened every day. Shopkeepers came out of their stores, people stopped their cars, a group of kids on bikes pulled over and stared. By the time Victor parked and we walked to the community centre, the street was lined with people. I walked in through the side entrance. The community centre hall was full. Every seat taken. People standing along the walls. The kind of crowd Greyfield usually saved for high school graduation or the 4th of July parade. Captain Park was near the front. She caught my eye and gave me a small nod. I walked to my seat in the front row. Then I heard the room change. Not a sound exactly, more like a shift in the air, and the way a room feels when someone very important walks into it. Conversations stopped. People straightened up without knowing why. General Raymond Holt walked through the main doors. Full dress uniform. 4 stars catching the light. His aide on his left and his military attorney on his right. He walked the way men walk when they have spent 4 decades earning the right to take up space. Steady, unhurried, completely certain. The whole room watched him in silence. He walked directly to the front. He shook Captain Park's hand. He spoke briefly to his attorney. Then he turned, and his eyes found me in the front row. He crossed the distance in 10 steps, and he held out his hand. I stood. My leg protested. I stood anyway. We shook hands. "Sergeant Cole," he said. Loud enough for the whole room to hear. "It is an honor." Behind me I heard the room react. Murmurs, movement. The sound of a town realizing that the story they had been told about the unstable veteran was not the story that was true. General Holt stepped to the microphone. He didn't use notes. Men like him never do. The United States military, he said, asks more of its soldiers than most people will ever understand. It asks them to leave everything, their families, their comfort, their safety, and go to places most people will never see, to do things most people will never know about. The room was absolutely silent. In return, he said, we make a promise. We promise to take care of our own. We promise that the sacrifice will be honored. We promise that when a soldier comes home, they will come home to something worth coming home to. He paused. What was done to Sergeant Marcus Cole is a violation of that promise, the theft of a military pension, through forged documents, through fraud, through the deliberate exploitation of a soldier who was serving his country, is not a family matter. It is not a private dispute. Another pause. It is a federal crime, and the United States military does not ignore federal crimes committed against its veterans. Not in this town, not in any town. I heard movement in the back of the room. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I already knew who was back there. Derek, my mother, and Harold Webb, sitting very, very still. Sergeant First Class Marcus Cole, General Holt said, turning to face me directly. For extraordinary valor during a classified combat operation in Kandahar province. For placing the lives of his fellow soldiers above his own safety. For his 12 years of dedicated and distinguished service to this country. He reached into his jacket. He produced the commendation. He crossed to where I was standing, and he pinned it to my chest next to the Purple Heart, with hands that had pinned 100 medals on 100 soldiers and still treated each one like it mattered. Then he leaned in. Close. Just for me. You held the line, son, he said quietly. In more ways than one? I didn't trust my voice right then, so I didn't use it. I just stood straight, chest out, eyes forward, the way I had been trained. The room started to clap. Slowly at first, then louder, then the kind of applause that fills a room completely, that bounces off the walls and the ceiling and comes back at you from every direction. And I heard it all. But what I was really listening to was the silence coming from the back of the room, where Derek stood, where my mother stood, where Harold Webb stood, with a face the color of old paper and hands that I imagined were shaking, though I couldn't see them from where I was. They had spent 22 months building a story. In 10 minutes, General Raymond Holt had ended it. Everything after the ceremony moved fast. That is the thing about truth. Once it starts moving, it doesn't stop. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care who gets hurt or who loses what. It just moves like water, finding every crack, filling every space, getting into every place that was sealed shut. The first crack appeared within 48 hours. Harold Webb resigned from the city council on a Thursday morning. His office released a statement. 3 sentences. It said he was stepping down for personal health reasons, that he was grateful for his years of service to the community, and that he wished Greyfield nothing but the best going forward. Victor texted me the statement at 8 in the morning with 3 words underneath it. He's running scared. I read the statement once. Then I put my phone face down on the motel table and I went back to my coffee. Running scared was not the same as facing consequences. I had learned that much from 12 years of watching situations unfold. People run when they think there is still somewhere to run to. The real moment, the one that mattered, came when they realized there wasn't. That moment was coming. I just had to be patient. Garfield lost his notary license 4 days after the ceremony. The state board suspended it pending a full investigation. Captain Park had submitted the evidence package directly to the board: the suspicious cash deposits, the timing, the 3 previous complaints on his record. The board moved faster than I expected. Captain Park said they always moved fast when a military case was involved. Something about federal oversight that she explained in legal language I only half understood. What I fully understood was this: Garfield was no longer able to operate, his business was finished, and without his license he had very little leverage and even less reason to protect the people who had paid him. Captain Park told me he had already started cooperating with investigators. He gave them Derek, she said on the phone. Names, dates, the amount he was paid, all of it. How much was he paid? I asked.
$4,000, she said. I was quiet for a moment. $4,000. That was what my name was worth to Gerald Garfield. $4,000 to put his stamp on a document that stole my entire future. I didn't say anything else about it. There was nothing useful to say. Derek was arrested on a Tuesday. I found out from Victor, who found out from his contact at the county clerk's office. 6:30 in the morning. 2 federal agents at Derek's apartment door. He was taken in for processing and held pending a bail hearing. Victor sent me one word: done. I sat with that word for a long time. Done. I had imagined this moment many times over the past weeks. I had imagined feeling triumphant. I had imagined feeling relieved. I had imagined some version of satisfaction that would feel like the ending of something.
And instead I just felt tired. Not the exhausted tired of the motel and the sleepless nights. Something deeper than that. The tired that comes after you have been holding tension in your body for so long that when it finally releases you don't feel free. You just feel empty. Like a fist that has been clenched for weeks, finally opening and finding nothing inside it. I drank my coffee. I looked out the window at the parking lot. Then I picked up my pen and I went back to work. Elena cooperated. That was the word Captain Park used. Cooperated. She said it in the flat, professional way lawyers use words when they are being careful not to say more than they need to. What it meant was this: Elena had agreed to give investigators a full statement in exchange for a reduced charge. She confirmed Derek as the primary architect of the fraud. She confirmed Harold Webb's involvement in arranging the notary and making the paperwork appear legitimate. She provided text messages, emails, dates, and details that filled in the parts of the picture I hadn't been able to see. She was the weaker link, Captain Park said. Derek knew it. He tried to keep her from talking, but once the federal pressure came down, she didn't hold. I nodded, even though Captain Park couldn't see me. How reduced is the charge? I asked. Significantly, she said. She'll likely avoid prison, community service, restitution payments, probation. I didn't feel angry about that. I want to be honest about that. I thought I would. I thought hearing that Elena would avoid prison would feel like another injustice stacked on top of all the others. But it didn't. I just felt nothing, unlike she had already become someone too far away from me to feel anything about. 7 years. A life I had believed in completely. And now, nothing. Just a name on a legal document. My mother called 4 times in 2 days. I let every call go to voicemail. On the 3rd day, I listened to the messages. The first one was crying. She said she couldn't believe how far things had gone. She said she never wanted any of this to happen. The second one was quieter. She said Derek was scared and he needed the family to stay together. The third one was something else entirely. Her voice was different in the 3rd message. Harder. The crying was gone. And what came out instead was the thing she had always kept just under the surface. The part of her that had protected Derek his whole life, not out of love, but out of habit. out of the need to never admit she had chosen wrong. "You did this, Marcus," she said. "You had a chance to handle this privately, and you chose to burn everything down instead. Derek is in jail because of you. This family is destroyed because of you. I hope you're proud of what you've built." I listened to it twice, not because it hurt, but because I wanted to remember it clearly. I wanted to remember exactly how it felt to hear my mother blame me for the consequences of what her favorite child had done. I wanted to keep that memory somewhere accessible for the moments in the future when I might start to feel guilty, when I might start to wonder if I had gone too far. This memory would fix that. I didn't listen to the fourth message. I deleted it without opening it. Well, Captain Park called me on a Friday afternoon with news I hadn't expected. "The recovery order came through," she said. I stopped what I was doing. "All of it?" I said. "All of it," she said. $240,000 plus 22 months of interest on the wrongfully diverted funds. The calculation puts the total recovery at approximately $263,000. I sat down. "Additionally," she said, "I submitted a formal request for reclassification of your medical discharge status 3 weeks ago. That came through this morning as well. You've been moved to a higher disability rating, which means improved long-term healthcare coverage, significantly improved." I pressed my hand flat against the table just to feel something solid. "Captain Park," I said. "Yes?" "Thank you." A pause, brief or professional. "Don't thank me," she said. "You built the case. I just filed the paperwork." Victor stayed with me through all of it. Every hearing update, every phone call from Captain Park, every morning when the motel room felt like it was closing in. He slept on the floor of my room for 2 weeks without being asked, just showed up one night with a sleeping bag and a bag of takeout and never mentioned it. We didn't talk about feelings. That was not how either of us was built. We talked about the case, we talked about next steps, we talked about football and bad coffee and the auto shop he was running and everything except the thing that was actually happening. But he was there. Every day, just there. And that was enough. That was more than enough. On the night after the recovery order came through, I turned the lights off at 10 and I lay in the dark and I stared at the ceiling. The case was essentially done. Derek was in custody. Harold Webb's lawyers were negotiating. Garfield had cooperated. Elena had cooperated. The money was coming back. It was over. I should have felt something clean, something finished. Instead, I felt the weight of it, all at once, pressed down on me in the dark. 12 years of service, 12 years of believing in something, 12 years of a family that was using me the whole time, and I never saw it because I didn't want to see it, because seeing it would have meant I had nobody, and I had needed somebody. I got up quietly. I went to the bathroom. I ran the cold tap, just for the sound of it, just for something real to hold on to. I pressed my palm flat against the cold tile wall. Oh, and then, alone in a bathroom, in a $49 motel room with nobody watching and nobody listening, I let it happen. I cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, not the way it happens in movies, just quietly and steadily, like something leaking that had been sealed for a very long time. My shoulders shook once, my chest hurt, my eyes burned. I let it go on until it stopped on its own. Then I ran cold water on my face. I straightened up. I looked at myself in the mirror for a long moment. I had survived 2 wars. I had survived this. Victor didn't knock. He knew. The way people who have been in hard places know when someone needs the silence kept. In the morning, neither of us mentioned it, and somehow that was the most loyal thing he had ever done for me. 6 weeks later, I had a new apartment. Second floor. 1 bedroom. Clean floors that smelled like fresh paint. A window that faced east, so I got the morning light every day. Something I hadn't realized I had missed until I stood in front of it the first morning and just let the sun hit my face for a full minute without moving. It was small. It was quiet. It was mine. I unpacked my duffel bag for the first time in weeks, and I put my clothes in the dresser drawer, and I set my legal pad on the kitchen counter, and I stood in the middle of the empty living room and I breathed, just breathed. No motel smell, no clicking heater, no parking lot outside the window, no folder of bank statements spread across a table, no case to build, no evidence to organize, no next step to plan, just a room, just me, just silence that was finally the right kind of silence. The pension was restored and active. The Captain Park had walked me through the final transfer confirmation herself. On the phone, line by line, making sure I saw every number. $263,000 back in an account in my name only, with no power of attorney on file, with a flag on the account that would alert military legal if anyone attempted to make any changes without my direct authorization. I checked the balance once when the confirmation came through. Then I closed the app and I didn't check it again that day, because here is something I understood now that I hadn't understood before. The money was never really what broke me. The money was just the proof of what they thought of me, the proof of what I was worth to the people I had trusted most. Getting the money back didn't fix that. It just gave me the ground to stand on while I figured out how to fix the rest myself. Derek was awaiting trial. I knew this because Captain Park kept me updated as required by the case. I didn't follow it beyond that. I didn't read news articles about it. I didn't look at his social media. I didn't want to know what he was feeling or saying or thinking. He was no longer someone whose feelings I needed to track. Elena had left Greyfield entirely. Someone mentioned seeing her near her sister's place in another state. I didn't look her up. I didn't want to know where she was or how she was doing or whether she regretted any of it. Regret was her business now, not mine. Harold Webb's lawyers were still negotiating with federal prosecutors. His political career was over, that much was certain, and the city council had filled his seat with a temporary appointment 2 weeks after his resignation. Greyfield had moved on from Harold Webb, the way small towns always move on, quickly, quietly, and without sentiment. I had moved on too. My mother sent a letter. It arrived on a Wednesday, handwritten on the pale blue stationery she had used my whole life, the same paper she had used to write to me when I was deployed, the letters I used to keep in a small box because they were the only thing, from home, I could hold on to out there. I put it on the kitchen counter. I looked at it for 3 days. On the 4th day, I threw it away, without opening it. I am not proud of that. I am not ashamed of it either. It was simply the truest thing I could do in that moment. I was not ready to read whatever was inside, the explanation, the apology, the defense of Derek, the version of events that made her choices make sense to her. Maybe someday I would be ready, maybe not. That day I wasn't. So I let it go. General Holt came to see me one final time. No convoy this time, no aides, no military attorney. He drove himself, a plain dark sedan, no government plates. And he parked in the visitor spot outside my building, and he knocked on my door at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday, like a regular person. I made coffee. We sat at my kitchen table. 2 mugs, nothing fancy, the same cheap brand Victor had been bringing me since the motel. We talked for almost 2 hours, not about the case, not about Derek or Elena or Harold Webb or the federal proceedings, not about pension fraud or power of attorney documents or notary licenses. We talked about other things. or fishing. He had a spot in Virginia he went to every August that he said was the only place he could think clearly. The way small towns worked, how they had their own kind of gravity that pulled you back no matter how far you went. What it felt like to sleep in a real bed after years of field cots. He had never fully gotten used to it either, even after all this time. He was just a man sitting at a table drinking coffee. It was the most human I had ever seen him. Near the end, when the coffee was gone and the morning light had shifted across the floor, he said something I didn't expect. He said it quietly, not like a general delivering a lesson, like a man saying something he had figured out the hard way and thought someone else might need to hear. "The bravest thing I have ever seen a soldier do," he said, "isn't on a battlefield." I waited. "It's survive the people who were supposed to protect them," he said, "and choose not to become what hurt them." The apartment was very quiet. I didn't say anything back. There wasn't anything to say. He had already said the thing I had been trying to find words for since the moment I walked out of that kitchen with my duffel bag. He finished his coffee. He stood up. He shook my hand at the door. "Take care of that leg," he said. "Yes, sir," I said. He walked to his car. He drove away. I stood in my doorway for a moment after he left. Then I went inside and I found a small piece of paper and I wrote down what he had said. I folded it twice and put it in my wallet. I have kept it there since. I started physical therapy the following Monday. Her name was Dr. Osei, and she was younger than I expected. Mid-30s, calm, no nonsense, the kind of person who looked at your injury the way a mechanic looks at an engine. Not with pity, with focus. She told me on the first day that I would always have a limp, that the damage to the leg was permanent, and I needed to stop treating rehabilitation like a mission to get back to zero. The goal was not zero. The goal was functional. The goal was strong. "You're not recovering to who you were," she said. "You're building who you are now. Those are different jobs." I liked her immediately. I went every Monday and Thursday. I did every exercise she assigned without complaint, not because I believed I would walk without a cane someday. I had made my peace with the cane, but because movement was my language, it always had been, and I had been still for too long. Our moving felt like being alive again. Victor called on a Thursday evening. I was in the middle of making dinner. Actual dinner, not takeout. Something I had started doing again because cooking was one of the small things that made the apartment feel like a home. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Tell me." "I signed the lease yesterday," he said. "The Veteran Support Center, 4 blocks from your building. We open in 8 weeks. I stopped stirring. Victor had been talking about this for 2 years, a place specifically for veterans who came home to nothing. No support system, no resources, no one who understood what the transition actually felt like. A place to go that wasn't a hotline or a waiting room. Just a space. Run by people who had been there. "Congratulations," I said. "That's real."
"Well, Victor, I need a counselor," he said. "Someone who can sit with veterans, just be present, not fix them, just be there." I knew where this was going. "Someone who knows what it's like," he said. "To come home and find out that home isn't what you thought it was." I was quiet for a moment. "Victor," I said. "Yeah? When do I start?" He laughed. The easy, full laugh I hadn't heard enough of lately. 8 weeks, he said. "Don't be late." That night I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after dinner. The apartment was quiet. The evening light came in flat and golden through the east window. My legal pad was on the counter, the same one I had filled with notes and names and evidence in the motel room. I picked it up and I looked at the first page. Derek, Elena, Garfield, Webb. I flipped past all of it, past the bank statements.
Past the phone call notes, past the timeline Captain Park had helped me build. I found a blank page near the back. I picked up a pen, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't write down evidence or names or case notes. I just wrote one line. Figure out what comes next. Then I closed the pad. I looked up at the wall across from the table. The only thing I had hung since moving in was the commendation from General Holt. Simple black frame, white mat, the official seal in the corner. My name in the center. It was crooked. About 2 degrees to the left. I had been meaning to fix it since I put it up. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I left it. Crooked and real and earned and mine. That was enough. That was more than enough. I wrote the letter on a Sunday morning. No particular reason for Sunday. I just woke up early, before the alarm, before the light had fully come through the east window, and I lay there in the quiet. And I knew. Today was the day I had been moving toward without realizing it. Not the day the money came back. Not the day Derek was arrested. Not even the day General Holt pinned that commendation to my chest in front of the whole town. This day, this quiet Sunday, this blank piece of paper on my kitchen table. I made coffee first. I sat down, I picked up the pen, and I wrote to the only person who still needed to hear from me. To the 22-year-old who walked into that recruitment office with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. I know why you joined. You wanted to matter. You wanted someone to look at you and see something worth seeing. You thought if you were brave enough, disciplined enough, good enough, the people at home would finally understand your value. Here is what I know now that you didn't know then. The medals are real. Every one of them. Nobody can take what you earned in those fields, in that heat, in those moments when everything was on the line and you chose right anyway. That belongs to you. It always will. The brothers you found in uniform, men like Victor, they are the ones who drove 3 hours without being asked, who slept on the floor without complaining, who sat across from you in a $49 motel room and said, "What do you want to do?" Not because they needed an answer, but because they wanted you to remember you still had a choice. Hold on to those people. They are rarer than any medal. The ones who took from you because they were afraid of you, not of your rank or your strength.
Of what your choices made visible about their own. Your discipline showed up their weakness. Your loyalty showed up their selfishness. Your sacrifice showed up their smallness. That fear was always their story, not yours. You don't need to forgive them. Forgiveness is a gift and they have not earned it. But you do need to put them down. Not dramatically, not with a speech or a final word or a last look. Just put them down the way you set your duffel bag on the floor of that new apartment. Quietly. And walk further into the room. The mission you thought you were on, prove yourself, earn love, be enough. That mission is over. It was never the real one anyway. The real mission is this. Build something that belongs to you. Show up for the people who show up for you. Move your body even when it hurts. Let Dr.
I.O.S.A. teach you what functional looks like. Walk into Victor's Center every week and sit with the men who came home to nothing. And just be there. Because being there is everything. You know that now. You are not the man they tried to bury. You are the man who got back up. That is the whole story. That is all of it. Marcus, I folded the letter twice. I didn't mail it anywhere. There was no address for the person I had written it to. I put it in the drawer under the kitchen counter, underneath a takeout menu and a spare phone charger, in the quiet, ordinary way you put something away when it has done its job. Then I stood up. I looked at the commendation on the wall. Still crooked. Still 2 degrees to the left. Still the only thing hanging in the whole apartment. I thought about straightening it. I left it. Some things are better the way they actually are than the way they were supposed to be. I picked up my cane. I picked up my keys. Victor's Centre opened today. I had somewhere to be.